The transmission began at exactly noon, Galactic Standard Time. Every communication system in known space carried the same signal simultaneously. On thousands of worlds, billions of creatures stopped what they were doing and listened as Admiral Hyunwoo Kim spoke from the bridge of his flagship, orbiting HFY. People of the galaxy, he began in the same calm, polite voice he had used during humanity's first contact with the aliens. I am Admiral Hyunwoo Kim, representing the people of Earth and the Terran Defense Force. We speak to you today not as conquerors, but as liberators. Behind him through the viewing ports, the capital world of the Keltheran hegemony turned slowly in space. The planet's surface was covered with massive cities and industrial complexes that had been built using the wealth stolen from conquered worlds. Now those cities lay defenseless beneath human guns. The Keltheran hegemony is hereby dissolved, Hyunwoo continued. All subjugated species are granted immediate independence. All hegemony military forces will surrender their weapons and submit to war crimes tribunals. Any species or government that chooses to attack Earth or its allies will face complete annihilation. On HFY, Overlord Zarthek watched the broadcast from his throne room with growing despair. His empire, built over 3 centuries of conquest, was crumbling around him. His fleets were destroyed, his commanders were dead or captured, and now the humans were dictating terms as if he were some minor planetary governor, instead of the ruler of half the galaxy. My lord, whispered General Kothran, perhaps we should consider surrender. If we negotiate now, we might be able to save something. Zarthek's 4 eyes blazed with fury. Never! The hegemony does not surrender to primitive species. But even as he spoke, reports came in from across his empire. On world after world, Keltheran garrisons were laying down their weapons rather than face human retaliation. Colonial administrators were fleeing their posts. The carefully built structure of fear and oppression that had held the empire together was falling apart. Some Keltheran hardliners refused to accept defeat. On the fortress world of Braktar, General Velthok gathered the survivors of 3 fleets and declared his intention to fight to the death. We will show these humans what Keltheran honor means, he broadcast to his forces. The human response was swift and absolute. General Dong Hyun Park commanded the ground assault on Braktar. His soldiers wore powered armor that made them stronger and faster than any alien warrior. Their weapons could penetrate any material the Keltherans had ever developed. And their tactics were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Remember, Dong Hyun told his troops as their transports approached the planet, we're not here to conquer. We're here to remove a threat. Civilian areas are off limits. Military targets only. The battle for Braktar lasted 18 hours. When it was over, the Keltheran military presence on the planet had been completely erased. Every weapon, every vehicle, every piece of military equipment had been destroyed with surgical precision. But the civilian cities remained untouched, their inhabitants unharmed. General Velthok was captured alive and brought before a human tribunal. As he sat in chains watching the destruction of his forces, he finally understood what the humans had been trying to tell the galaxy. They could choose between being protectors or destroyers. The choice belonged entirely to their enemies, but humanity also showed its capacity for mercy and rebuilding. Dr. Min Cho led massive humanitarian efforts to provide medical aid and supplies to worlds that had suffered under hegemony rule. Her teams arrived with advanced technology that could heal injuries the aliens had thought permanent and cure diseases that had plagued entire species for generations. We're not here to rule you, she told the leaders of newly liberated worlds. We're here to help you rule yourselves. On the planet Zerion, where the blue-skinned Zerites had been slaves for 2 centuries, human engineers worked alongside local workers to rebuild their destroyed cities. The humans shared clean energy technology, advanced medical knowledge, and agricultural techniques that could feed billions. Why are you helping us? Asked Elder Korlan, the senior Zerite leader. What do you want in return? Dr. Minna smiled as she watched human and Zerite children playing together in a newly built school. We want you to be free. We want you to be safe. And we want to make sure no one can ever enslave you again. The transformation of the galaxy happened faster than anyone had expected. As word spread of humanity's generosity toward those who accepted peace and their ruthlessness toward those who chose war, more and more species began asking to join what became known as the Terran Concordat. Unlike the hegemony, which had ruled through fear and oppression, The Concordat was based on voluntary cooperation. Member species contributed what they could and received protection, technology, and aid in return, but membership was always a choice, never a requirement. Ambassador Sora Park, now serving as the Concordat's first Secretary General, oversaw the integration of dozens of species who had lived under Keltheran rule. Her offices on the newly built space station Unity 1 were always busy with delegations from worlds seeking alliance or aid. The key, she explained to her staff, is to never make the same mistakes the hegemony made. We help those who want help. We protect those who need protection, but we never force our values on anyone. On Earth, the war was remembered as both humanity's greatest victory and its greatest tragedy. Monuments were built to honor the millions who had died in the initial Keltheran bombardment. But the monuments also carried a message about the price of ignoring warnings and the importance of choosing peace over war. Years passed. The galaxy settled into a new pattern of cooperation and mutual defense. Trade flourished between worlds that had never been allowed to communicate under hegemony rule. Scientific knowledge was shared freely, leading to advances that benefited every species. Captain Eugene Ko, now an admiral commanding the Concordat Defense Fleet, patrolled the borders of known space in her new flagship, the Eternal Vigilance. Her crews were mixed now, with humans serving alongside Zerites, Caldrians, and dozens of other species who had chosen to help protect the peace. Contact on long-range sensors, reported her tactical officer, a young Caldrian named Zixtal. Unknown ship approaching from outside the galaxy. Eugene studied the readings with interest. Configuration? Unlike anything in our database, Admiral. They're broadcasting a message. The alien transmission appeared on the main screen. The creatures were tall and silver-skinned with 6 arms and large black eyes. Their leader spoke in a language the translation computers had never encountered before. We are the Vorthak Empire, the alien said once the computers had learned enough to translate. We have come to claim this galaxy for our own. Surrender now and you will be allowed to serve us. Eugene looked around her bridge at the mixed crew of species who had once been enemies but now served together as friends and allies. She thought about the children playing in schools across 100 worlds, the cities being rebuilt with human and alien cooperation, and the peace that had been won at such terrible cost. Send our standard response, she told her communications officer. The transmission went out on all frequencies, carrying the same message that had become humanity's unofficial motto. Eugene's face appeared on the Vorthak ship's screens as she spoke in the same calm, polite tone that Admiral Hyunwoo had used years before. This is Admiral Eugene Ko of the Terran Concordat Defense Fleet. We are willing to discuss peaceful relations and mutual cooperation. However, if you choose to attack any member of our alliance, we will be forced to abandon diplomatic courtesy. This is your only warning. The galaxy held its breath as it waited for the Vorthak response, but this time the outcome was already clear. Humanity had learned to choose between being protectors and destroyers, and they had taught the galaxy that choice always came with consequences. In his garden on Luna Station, now rebuilt and more beautiful than ever, retired Admiral Hyunwoo tended his flowers while watching ships from dozens of worlds dock peacefully at humanity's first spaceport. A young alien child, part of a diplomatic family visiting Earth, approached him with wide, curious eyes. Admiral Kim, the child asked in carefully practiced English. My teacher says you once fought a terrible war. How can you be so gentle now after being so scary then? Hyunwoo looked up at the Earth hanging in the black sky, its blue surface now protected by the most powerful fleet in galactic history. He thought about the choices that had brought them all to this peaceful moment, and the warnings that had been ignored until it was almost too late. We gave them a choice, he said quietly. We always give them a choice, but we only give it once. The emergency session on SciFiPrime began at dawn. Overlord Zarthek, supreme ruler of the Keltheran hegemony, sat on his massive throne as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. His 4 eyes glowed with fury as he read each message. The impossible had happened. A primitive species had destroyed one of his finest fleets. Explain this to me again, Zarthek demanded, his voice echoing through the throne room. How did 60 of our best warships get defeated by creatures who still use metal projectiles? Fleet Commander Vextar stood before the throne, his uniform torn and his gray skin bearing scars from the battle. Half of his officers were dead, and the other half wished they were. My lord, these humans are not what our scouts reported. They possess weapons we have never encountered. quantum phase torpedoes that pass through our shields, kinetic weapons that move at light speed, ships that can appear and disappear at will. You sound like a coward making excuses, snarled General Cothran from his position beside the throne. No primitive species could develop such technology. I saw it with my own eyes, Vextar protested. Their fighters moved like nothing we've ever faced. Their ships emerged from empty space as if they had been invisible. And their weapons turned our own fleet against us. Zarthek stood up from his throne, his massive form towering over everyone in the room. For 800 years, the Keltheran hegemony had conquered world after world without a single major defeat. Now these humans had shattered that record in a matter of hours. Send the 4th and 5th fleets to human space, he ordered. If these creatures think one victory makes them strong, they will learn otherwise. We will show them what happens when anyone dares to defy the hegemony. But before the orders could be transmitted, alarms began blaring throughout the palace. A junior officer rushed into the throne room, his face pale with terror. My lord, the officer stammered, our long-range sensors are detecting a large fleet approaching from the direction of human space. They're moving faster than should be possible. Zarthek's eyes widened. The humans? Coming here? How many ships? Over 200 vessels, sir. They'll reach our outer territories in less than 3 days. The throne room fell silent. Every Keltheran present struggled to understand what they were hearing. In 3,000 years of galactic history, no species had ever launched an attack on the hegemony's home systems. The very idea seemed impossible. Leading the human fleet was Admiral Hyunwoo aboard his flagship, the Terran Resolve. The massive dreadnought had been built in secret using the best of both human and captured alien technology. Its quantum drives allowed it to move faster than any Keltheran ship, while its weapons could destroy targets from ranges the aliens couldn't even detect. Status report, Hyunwoo said as he walked onto the bridge of his ship. We're 12 hours from the first hegemony outpost, reported Commodore Heejin Lim. Our scouts confirm they have a defense fleet of 30 ships waiting for us. Good, Hyunwoo replied. Time to show the galaxy that humanity keeps its promises. The human fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. These weren't the desperate defenders who had fought at Earth. These were warriors on the attack, their ships modified with captured alien technology and improved beyond the aliens' wildest dreams. Every vessel carried weapons designed specifically to counter Keltheran defenses. Captain Sung Min commanded the vanguard, his ships spreading out in a formation that confused Keltheran tacticians. Where alien fleets moved in predictable patterns, human forces seemed to flow like water, adapting to every situation with frightening speed. Remember, Sungmin told his squadron leaders, we're not here to conquer territory. We're here to send a message. Any installation that surrenders gets left alone. Any that fight back get turned to atoms. The first hegemony outpost, Garrison Beta 7, commanded the approach to the core systems. Its commander, Sub-Admiral Velthar, watched the approaching human fleet with growing unease. He had read the reports from Earth, but seeing human ships in person was far more terrifying than any written description. All ships, prepare for battle, he ordered. Remember, we defend the honor of the hegemony. But when the battle began, it lasted less than 10 minutes. Human ships appeared from impossible angles, their quantum torpedoes phasing through Keltheran shields as if they were made of air. The aliens' return fire struck empty space as human vessels vanished and reappeared like ghosts. Within moments, half the defense fleet was destroyed and the other half was frantically trying to surrender. This is Sub-Admiral Velthar, came the transmission from the surviving alien commander. We surrender. Please, we surrender. Captain Sungmin's face appeared on every screen in the Keltheran fleet. Evacuation transports are on their way. You have 30 minutes to abandon your stations. Anyone still here after that will be considered hostile. The aliens evacuated their outpost in record time. As soon as the last transport was clear, human demolition ships moved in and systematically destroyed every military installation, weapon, and piece of equipment. But they left the civilian areas completely untouched. The pattern repeated at every hegemony position the humans encountered. Surrender meant safety. Resistance meant complete annihilation. Word spread quickly through alien communication networks that the humans were not interested in conquest or revenge. They wanted something far more dangerous than that. They wanted the hegemony to be afraid. Dr. Taeyong, now serving as the fleet's psychological warfare specialist, broadcast messages on every frequency the aliens used. "People of the galaxy," his voice said in dozens of languages, "the Keltheran hegemony told you they were invincible. They said no species could stand against their might. But Earth remembers that we gave them a choice. We offered them peace. They chose war instead." The broadcasts included detailed recordings of the battle at Earth, showing Keltheran ships being destroyed by human weapons. They also showed the failed diplomatic meeting where humans had tried to negotiate while the aliens planned their conquest. "The hegemony could have had Earth as an ally," the message continued. "Instead, they chose to attack our civilians and destroy our cities. Now they will face the consequences of that choice." Throughout the galaxy, species that had lived under Keltheran rule for centuries watched these broadcasts with amazement. For the first time in their lives, they saw their oppressors running in fear from someone else. On the planet Xerion, where the blue-skinned Zerites had been slaves for 200 years, crowds gathered in secret to watch the human fleet advance deeper into hegemony space. On HFY, the insectoid Caldrians dared to hope for freedom for the first time in generations. But the humans weren't finished demonstrating their power. As the fleet approached the core systems of the hegemony, they encountered stronger resistance. The aliens had assembled their most powerful warships to make a final stand. 300 Keltheran vessels, including their newest battleships and their most experienced crews, waited in formation around the industrial world of Kelth Minor. Admiral Hyunwoo studied the enemy positions from his command bridge. "They're trying to force a major battle," he observed. "They think if they can inflict enough casualties on us, we'll retreat." "Orders, sir?" asked Commodore Hyojin. Hyunwoo smiled grimly. "Show them what human engineering can really do. Deploy the Nova-class destroyers." The Nova-class ships were Dr. Tae-young's latest creation, vessels so advanced that they made regular human ships look primitive by comparison. Only 6 had been built, and they had never been used in combat before. When the Novas entered the battle, the result was devastating. Each ship fought like an entire fleet, their AI-controlled weapon systems targeting dozens of enemies simultaneously. Their quantum shields could absorb any amount of energy the aliens could produce, while their weapons could destroy any target within range. The battle became a massacre. The Keltheran fleet, assembled with such confidence, was torn apart in less than an hour. Survivors fled in every direction, carrying word of humanity's terrifying power to every corner of the galaxy. As the human fleet approached HFY itself, Overlord Zarthek finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. The humans hadn't come to conquer his empire. They had come to end it completely. A transmission came through from Admiral Hyunwoo. The human's face appeared on the main screen in the hegemony throne room, his expression calm and professional. "Overlord Zarthek, this is Admiral Hyunwoo Kim of the Terran Defense Force. We are now in orbit around your capital world. You have 1 hour to consider your options. Choose carefully." The first plasma blast from the Keltheran fleet lit up the darkness of space like green lightning. Energy beams struck Luna Station with devastating force, tearing through the metal structure and sending debris spinning into the void. Emergency sirens wailed across the facility as sections lost atmosphere and artificial gravity failed. Fleet Commander Vextar watched the destruction from his command bridge with satisfaction. "Target Earth's major cities next," he ordered. "Start with their population centers. Show them the price of defiance." The alien warships moved into closer bombardment positions, their massive hulls gleaming under the light of the distant sun, plasma cannons charged with deadly energy, while targeting computers locked onto cities across Earth's surface. The Keltherans had done this hundreds of times before. The pattern never changed. But something was different this time. Captain Yujin Ko crouched in the command center of her destroyer, the Silent Thunder, hidden deep inside a hollow asteroid in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. Through her ship's sensors, she watched the enemy fleet spreading out in perfect attack formation. The aliens had no idea they were flying directly into humanity's trap. "All stations report ready," whispered her tactical officer, Lieutenant Bora Kim. The young woman's hands trembled slightly as she prepared to fire weapons that had never been tested in real combat. "Wait for it," Yujin said calmly. She had trained for this moment her entire life. Her parents and grandparents had worked on the Terran Defense Initiative. Now it was her turn to see if their sacrifices had been worth it. The alien bombardment began in earnest. green plasma beams stabbed down through Earth's atmosphere, striking major cities around the planet. Buildings collapsed. Fires spread. Millions of people died in the first few minutes of the attack. The aliens had made their choice, and humanity's patience finally ended. All units, this is Deep Blue Command. Admiral Hyun Woo's voice came through the quantum communication system. Execute Operation Courtesy's End, weapons free. Yujin smiled grimly. You heard the Admiral. Light them up. The Silent Thunder and 46 other human warships decloaked simultaneously throughout the solar system. One moment the space around the alien fleet appeared empty. The next moment, sleek human vessels emerged from asteroids, debris fields, and the dark spaces between planets like deadly ghosts materializing from nothing. The Keltheran sensors screamed warnings, but it was already too late. Quantum torpedoes phased through the aliens' energy shields as if they didn't exist. The weapons materialized inside enemy hulls and detonated with tremendous force. Keltheran ships that had seemed invincible moments before suddenly exploded from within, their armor torn apart by weapons they couldn't even see coming. Impossible, Vextar shouted as his flagship shuddered under multiple impacts. How are they penetrating our shields? His tactical officer, Quindal, stared at her instruments in disbelief. Sir, these aren't primitive projectiles. These are quantum phase weapons. They're more advanced than anything in our arsenal. The human attack was perfectly coordinated. While Yujin's destroyers struck from the asteroid belt, other human ships attacked from positions near the outer planets. The aliens found themselves surrounded by enemies they hadn't even known existed. Lieutenant Jaewon Nam piloted his fighter through the chaos, his small vessel dancing between massive alien warships like a bird flying between falling trees. His squadron of 12 fighters moved with impossible precision, striking at enemy gun positions and then vanishing before return fire could reach them. Tiger Squadron, this is Tiger 1, he said into his radio. Target their weapon systems. Don't let them fire on Earth again. The human fighters were much smaller than their alien counterparts, but they were also much faster and more maneuverable. Where Keltheran pilots relied on heavy armor and overwhelming firepower, humans used speed, cunning, and unpredictable tactics. Jaewon's fighter suddenly appeared directly above a Keltheran destroyer, fired a burst of plasma bolts into its main cannon, and then dove away before the enemy gunners could track him. Behind him, the alien weapon exploded in a chain reaction that tore through half the ship. Direct hit, called his wingman, Lieutenant Sun-Ho Park. Their main gun is offline. But the real surprise was yet to come. From positions throughout the solar system, Dr. Tae-young's Newton's gift arrays activated. Tungsten rods, each one the size of a telephone pole, began accelerating toward the alien fleet using gravitational slingshots around planets and moons. The rods gained speed as they flew, reaching velocities that approached the speed of light itself. When the first rod struck a Keltheran battleship, the impact released energy equal to a nuclear weapon. The massive alien vessel simply disappeared in a flash of light and debris. A second rod struck another ship, then a third and a fourth. The aliens watched in horror as their most powerful warships were destroyed by what appeared to be simple metal bars moving at impossible speeds. What kind of weapons are these? Quindal screamed. Our sensors show they're just chunks of metal. Physics, Dr. Minna's voice came through the alien communication system as her computer viruses activated. You forgot that humans understand physics very well. Suddenly, the Keltheran ship's own weapons began turning against them. Targeting computers infected with human viruses started firing on friendly vessels instead of human targets. Alien plasma cannons that should have been destroying Earth's cities were instead tearing apart their own. Fleet Vextar realized with growing terror that the humans had been inside their computer systems all along. Every tactical decision, every ship position, every weapons frequency had been monitored and analyzed. The humans knew exactly how to defeat them because they had been studying Keltheran technology for decades. All ships, retreat immediately, he ordered. Fall back beyond the range of their weapons. But the human ships pursued them relentlessly. Yujin's Silent Thunder emerged from behind a large asteroid, her quantum torpedoes already locked onto fleeing enemy vessels. Oh no, you don't get to run away, she said. Not after what you did to Luna Station. The battle turned into a complete rout. Keltheran ships that had seemed invincible an hour earlier were now fleeing in panic as human forces destroyed them one by one. The aliens' perfect formations collapsed into chaos as individual captains tried to save their own ships rather than coordinate their defense. Captain Sungmin Choi's flagship, the Terran Resolve, led the pursuit of the main enemy force. His ship had been built using captured alien technology, but improved with human engineering. It was faster, more heavily armed, and better shielded than anything the Keltherans had ever faced. "Target their command ship," he ordered his weapons officer. "Let's end this." Quantum torpedoes streaked across space toward Vextar's flagship. The alien commander watched them coming and knew there was nothing he could do to stop them. His shields were useless against human weapons. His armor was designed to stop primitive projectiles, not quantum phase explosives. The torpedoes struck his ship's engine section and detonated. The massive vessel lurched violently as its power systems failed. Emergency lights flickered throughout the bridge as atmosphere began venting from dozens of hull breaches. "Sir, we're losing life support," Quindal reported. "Main engines are offline. We're dead in space." Vextar stared at the tactical display, which showed the complete destruction of his fleet. Of the 60 ships that had entered the human solar system, only 12 were still capable of flight. The rest were either destroyed or crippled beyond repair. A transmission came through from the human admiral. Hyunwoo's face appeared on the screen, his expression calm and professional. "Commander Vextar, your fleet is defeated. Surrender now and your surviving crews will be treated according to galactic law. Continue fighting and we will destroy every last one of your ships." Vextar looked around his damaged bridge at his terrified crew members. These were warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds, but they had never faced anything like humanity's coordinated assault. The humans had turned their own strengths against them and revealed weaknesses the Keltherans never knew they had. We surrender," he said finally. "Wise choice," Hyunwoo replied. "Now you're going to send a message to your hegemony. Tell them exactly what happened here. Tell them that humanity gave you fair warning, and you chose to ignore it. Tell them that our courtesy has officially ended." As the surviving alien ships limped away from Earth, carrying news of their devastating defeat, humanity began the task of cleaning up the battlefield. The war was far from over, but the first battle had been won decisively. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were not the primitive species they appeared to be. The elevator descended deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, carrying Admiral Hyunwoo Kim down to levels that did not exist on any official maps. The metal walls rushed past for nearly 5 minutes before the elevator finally stopped. When the doors opened, Hyunwoo stepped into a vast underground facility that stretched as far as the eye could see. "Welcome to Deep Blue Command, the most classified location on Earth. Hidden beneath 3 miles of ocean water and rock, this facility had been built in absolute secrecy over the past 60 years. Only a few hundred people in the entire world knew it existed." Hyunwoo walked through corridors lined with advanced technology that made the alien ship look primitive by comparison. Holographic displays showed real-time positions of every object in the solar system. Quantum computers processed millions of calculations per second. And everywhere, military personnel worked with quiet efficiency. He entered the main conference room where Earth's top commanders were already waiting. General Dong-hyun Park, a stern man with silver hair, stood studying a 3-dimensional map of the solar system. Fleet Admiral Yoon-ji Song, the youngest person ever to reach her rank, sat reviewing tactical reports on her tablet. Dr. Tae-young Ro, head of the Prometheus project, worked at a computer terminal displaying weapon specifications. "Report," Hyunwoo said as he took his seat at the head of the table. General Dong-hyun spoke first. "All ground forces are in position. We have combat teams hidden in every major city on Earth. The aliens expect us to have primitive weapons, so they'll be surprised when they meet our real soldiers." "What about the space forces?" Hyunwoo asked. Fleet Admiral Yoonji looked up from her tablet. "Captain Sungmin reports ready from the asteroid belt. His ships are hidden inside hollowed-out rocks. The enemy sensors can't tell the difference between our vessels and natural asteroids. We have 47 warships ready to attack." Dr. Tae-young turned his computer screen so everyone could see it. "The Newton's Gift project is fully operational. We have mass drivers positioned throughout the solar system. Each one can accelerate tungsten rods to 90% of light speed using gravitational slingshots around the planets." Hyunwoo nodded slowly. "And the quantum torpedoes?" "Ready for deployment. These weapons can phase through any known energy shield technology. Once they're inside an enemy ship, they return to normal space and explode." Dr. Tae-young smiled grimly. The aliens won't know what hit them. The room fell silent as everyone contemplated what was coming. These people had dedicated their entire lives to preparing for this moment. Now that it was here, they felt a mixture of excitement and sadness. "Sir," said a young officer from the communications station, "we're receiving updates from our intelligence network." "Display them," Hyunwoo ordered. The main screen showed a complex web of information gathered over decades. Starting in 2157, Earth's long-range sensors had detected alien transmissions from distant star systems. Instead of trying to contact these aliens, Earth's governments had made a different choice. They decided to prepare for the worst. The Terran Defense Initiative had been created in complete secrecy. Every major nation on Earth contributed resources, personnel, and technology. They studied the alien communications, learned about their technology, and developed countermeasures. Most importantly, they learned about alien psychology and tactics. The Keltheran hegemony follows the same pattern every time, explained Dr. Tae-young, bringing up historical data. They arrive with overwhelming force. They demand immediate surrender. If the target species resists, they bombard the planet until nothing is left alive. But they have one weakness: arrogance, General Dong-hyun said. They've never faced real resistance. They expect every species to be helpless. Exactly, Dr. Tae-young continued. So we gave them what they expected to see. A primitive species with basic technology and no real defenses. They'll move in close for the bombardment, thinking they're completely safe. Fleet Admiral Yoonji activated another display showing the positions of hidden human forces. Our ships use stolen alien technology, improved with human engineering. We captured several Keltheran scout vessels over the years, and reverse-engineered everything. Our weapons are actually more advanced than theirs now. The screen showed sleek human warships hidden throughout the solar system. Each one was crewed by volunteers who had trained their entire lives for this mission. These weren't regular military personnel. They were the children and grandchildren of the people who had started the Terran Defense Initiative. Captain Sung Min, Choi's voice came through the communication system from his flagship, hidden in the asteroid belt. Deep Blue Command, this is Shadow Fleet. All ships report ready. We're tracking the enemy formation. They're moving closer to Earth just as predicted. Understood, Shadow Fleet, Hyunwoo replied. Maintain concealment until the attack begins. Dr. Min-ah Cho entered the command room, still wearing the clothes she had worn to the alien ship. During the diplomatic meeting, she had managed to plant quantum transmitters throughout the enemy vessel. These tiny devices were now feeding information directly to Earth's computers. What did you learn? Hyunwoo asked her. Their shields operate on a rotating frequency pattern, Dr. Min-ah reported. Our quantum torpedoes can be programmed to match the frequency exactly. Also, their computer systems are vulnerable to our AI viruses. I uploaded several programs during the meeting. What kind of programs? General Dong-hyun asked. Dr. Min-ah smiled. The kind that turn their own weapons against them. When we activate the viruses, their targeting systems will start firing on their own ships instead of ours. On the main screen, they watched the alien fleet moving closer to Earth. The Keltheran ships maintained perfect formation, confident in their superiority. They had no idea that human sensors were tracking every movement, that human computers were analyzing every transmission, that human weapons were already locked onto their targets. Sir, called the communications officer, we're receiving a transmission from the alien commander. The screen showed Vextar's face again. This time he looked impatient and slightly annoyed. Humans of Earth, he said, your time for preparation is almost over. We grow tired of waiting. You have 6 hours to gather in your major cities for processing. Any resistance will result in immediate destruction. The transmission ended. Around the command room, the human officers looked at each other with grim determination. Send our response, Hyunwoo ordered. The communications officer activated Earth's transmission system. Hyunwoo's face appeared on screens throughout the Keltheran fleet as he spoke in the same calm, polite tone that Ambassador Sora had used. Fleet Commander Vextar, this is Admiral Hyunwoo Kim of the Terran Defense Force. We have considered your demands carefully. However, we must respectfully decline your offer of integration into your empire. We hereby issue Earth's final warning. Withdraw your forces immediately or we will be forced to abandon diplomatic courtesy. The transmission ended. In the command room, everyone waited to see how the aliens would respond. They didn't have to wait long. Within minutes, energy readings from the alien fleet spiked dramatically. The Keltherans were powering up their weapons for bombardment. "Well," said General Dong Hyun, "I guess they made their choice." "Indeed they have," Hyun-woo replied. He turned to the communications officer. "Send the activation code to all units. Operation Courtesy's End begins now." Throughout the solar system, hidden human forces received their orders. On Earth, in the asteroid belt around the outer planets, humanity's secret weapons came online. The aliens had dismissed them as primitive. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Dr. Tae-young began the final countdown, Newton's gift systems activating in 60 seconds. "Shadow Fleet, you are cleared to attack. All units, remember your training. Make every shot count." The war for humanity's survival was about to begin. The massive alien ship floated in the darkness of space like a metal mountain. Its hull stretched for miles, covered in strange symbols that glowed with purple light. Inside the ship's command center, tall creatures with gray skin and 4 arms moved between control panels. Their leader, Fleet Commander Vextar, stood before a huge viewing screen that showed the stars. "Show me the next target," Vextar said in his deep voice. His yellow eyes focused on the screen as it changed to show a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. "This is the 3rd planet in the system they call Sol," said Quindal, his tactical advisor. She pointed at the screen with one of her long fingers. "The creatures there call themselves humans. Our scouts say they have primitive technology. No energy shields, no plasma weapons. They still use metal projectiles for fighting." Vextar made a sound that might have been laughter. "How many ships do they have?" "Less than 50 that can leave their planet's atmosphere. Most are small vessels used for moving cargo between their worlds." Quindal touched her control panel and numbers appeared on the screen. "Their largest warship is smaller than our escort fighters." "Perfect." Vextar turned to face the other commanders in the room. "We will follow standard procedure. Send the surrender demand. Give them 1 day to respond. Then we take their world and add it to the hegemony." The other aliens nodded their agreement. For 300 years, the Keltheran hegemony had conquered world after world this way. Most species either surrendered immediately or fought briefly before being crushed. The pattern never changed. Far away on Earth's Luna station, Admiral Hyun-woo Kim watched the alien fleet appear on his sensors. The Korean officer had spent his entire career preparing for this moment, though the aliens didn't know that. He stood in the command center, his hands clasped behind his back as junior officers rushed around him with reports. "Sir, we're receiving their transmission now," called out Lieutenant Park from the communications station. "Put it on the main screen," Hyun-woo said calmly. The viewing screen showed Vextar's face, his 4 eyes staring directly at the camera. When he spoke, the translation system converted his words into clear English. "Primitive species of the 3rd planet. I am Fleet Commander Vextar of the Keltheran hegemony. Your world has been selected for integration into our empire. You will surrender all military forces and submit to our authority. You have 24 hours to respond. Resistance will result in the destruction of your civilization." The transmission ended. Around the command center, young officers looked at each other with worried faces. But Hyun-woo just smiled slightly. "Send a reply," he told Lieutenant Park. "Tell them we request a diplomatic meeting to discuss terms. Ambassador Park will lead our delegation." "Sir?" Lieutenant Park looked confused. "Shouldn't we prepare our defenses?" "We are prepared," Hyun-woo said quietly. "Send the message." On the alien flagship, Quindal stared at the human response message in surprise. "Commander, they want to negotiate. They're requesting a formal diplomatic meeting." Vextar's 4 eyes blinked slowly. "Negotiate? They think they can negotiate with the hegemony?" "It's unusual," admitted Quindal. "Most species either surrender immediately or start shooting at us. These humans seem calm. How amusing." Vextar made his laughing sound again. "Very well. We will play their little game. It will make good entertainment before we conquer them. Tell them their delegation may come aboard." 3 hours later, a small human shuttle approached the Keltheran flagship. Inside sat Ambassador Sora Park, a middle-aged Korean woman with kind eyes and graying hair. With her were Captain Jin-ho Lee, a military advisor with a serious expression, and Dr. Mina Cho, a scientist who kept looking around nervously at the alien technology. "Remember," Sora said softly as they docked with the alien ship, "we are here to buy time and gather information. Act impressed by everything you see. Act like we're weak and desperate. Jinho nodded. How long do we need to keep this up? 72 hours minimum, Sora replied. That should be enough. The airlock opened and the three humans stepped into the alien ship. The corridors were enormous, designed for creatures much larger than humans. Strange lights pulsed in the walls and the air smelled like metal and ozone. 2 Keltheran guards escorted them to the conference room where Vextar and his officers waited. The aliens towered over the humans, their gray skin gleaming under the bright lights. Vextar gestured to chairs that had been hastily adjusted for human size. Welcome aboard the Dominion's Edge, Vextar said. I am Fleet Commander Vextar. I admit I am curious about your species. Most primitive races either beg for mercy or threaten us with their pathetic weapons. You seem different, Sora bowed politely. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us, Commander. We believe there may be room for mutual benefit in this situation. Earth has much to offer the hegemony. Quinda leaned forward in her chair. What could a primitive species possibly offer us? Dr. Minna spoke up, her voice trembling slightly. Our mathematical knowledge, perhaps? We've made interesting discoveries about quantum physics and gravitational manipulation, and our biological diversity is quite remarkable. The aliens exchanged glances. Captain Jinho added, We also have extensive databases of our culture, art, and music. Many species find human creativity entertaining. Entertaining, Vextar repeated, his yellow eyes gleaming with amusement. Yes, I suppose your species might make adequate servants. Perhaps some of you could be kept as curiosities. Sora kept her expression humble and hopeful. We were hoping for something more like junior partnership. We understand the hegemony needs workers for dangerous tasks. Humans are very adaptable. We can work in environments that might be difficult for other species. For the next 2 hours, the humans presented themselves as eager to please, but ultimately powerless. They offered to share their technology, provide labor, and even help the hegemony contact other human colonies in exchange for merciful treatment. They acted impressed by every piece of alien technology they saw. Dr. Minna asked many questions about Keltheran science, always framing them as the curiosity of a primitive mind, trying to understand superior knowledge. Captain Jinho inquired about military protocols, claiming he wanted to understand how human forces might best serve the hegemony's needs. The aliens grew more relaxed as the meeting continued. These humans seemed completely harmless. They were clearly in awe of Keltheran power and desperately hoping to avoid destruction. It was almost pathetic. Very well, Vextar finally said. I will give you 72 hours to prepare your world for integration. Gather your leaders and prepare surrender documents. We will begin with major population centers. Thank you for your mercy, Commander, Sora said, bowing again. We won't forget this kindness. As the human delegation returned to their shuttle, Quindal watched them go. They seem genuinely grateful, she observed. Perhaps this will be easier than usual. Indeed, Vextar agreed. Prepare the occupation fleets. These humans will make useful slaves once they're properly broken. The human shuttle departed the alien ship and headed back toward Earth. Inside, the 3 humans sat in silence until they were sure they were out of sensor range. Then Sora activated a quantum encrypted communicator. Control, this is Ambassador Park. Phase 1 complete. The targets have accepted our performance. They believe we're a typical primitive species. Beginning Phase 2 preparations now. Admiral Hyunwoo's voice came through clearly. Understood, Ambassador. Excellent work. Return to base immediately. We have a lot to discuss. Sora smiled as she looked out at the stars. The aliens had no idea what was coming for them, but they would learn soon enough that humanity's politeness was not the same thing as weakness. On the alien flagship, Vextar stood before his viewing screen again, watching the human shuttle disappear into the distance. Behind him, his officers made preparations for the conquest of Earth. None of them noticed the small quantum transmitters that Dr. Minna had secretly attached to their computer systems during the meeting. The countdown to humanity's real response had begun.